So now it's Menoth's turn to go. Krios, which is the warcaster that comes in the Menoth Battlegroup, has a focus of 7, which means we'll give him 7 focus points. It also means that his control area is 14 inches as opposed to 12, like Sorsha's. And Krios is going to want to cast some spells, but he will give some focus away. Let's give one to his... He's going to give one to his Revenger, which happens to be a arc node. This will come into play later on. We're going to go ahead and give a point over to the Repenter as well. Now, based on the spells that he's going to want to cast, Krios is going to hold on to the rest of his focus. Alright, so, again, like with the Khador side, you pick one model and do everything you want to do with that one particular model. Then move on to the next until your turn is over. The Crusader is going to go ahead and move forward. The Revenger is going to go ahead and use his focus point so that he can run. The Revenger has a base speed of 5, so now he can move 10. The Repenter also is going to run. And again, he has a speed of 5, so by running he can now move 10. So the Revenger, even though he can run 10 inches, is only going to run 8 and move directly to there. Now, the reason that I don't want to move him directly into the forest is that if there is an opponent model on the opposite side of a forest and neither are inside the forest, they cannot see one another no matter how wide this forest is. If the model even has a little bit into the forest, 3 inches away from that model within the forest, or even on the other side, the opponent model can see him. But from right here, the opposing model, and mainly the one I'm worried about, is this Khador heavy warjack over here firing at my light warjack. It's pretty far range, probably wouldn't make it. Why chance it? Krios will go ahead and move up. His standard movement is 5 inches. And he will spend all his focus 2 on Defender's Ward, which will give a +2 defense and armor to a particular model. In this case, he's going to cast Defender's Ward on his Arc Node. And he's going to cast Lamentation on himself. He has a range, that is a range of self. So, what do these things do? Again, the Defender's Ward gives a +2 defense and armor to the model that had it cast on. Lamentation means that enemy models pay double the focus to cast or on upkeep spells. This means that enemy models within his range, while within their control area, pay double the points, focus points to cast spells or to apply upkeep. Now remember that Krios' range is 14 inches, which doesn't really put this into play, but he'll be able to maintain that Lamentation next turn for the cost of 1 as opposed to 3. We've now finished the first round of this Warmachine tutorial. So now we're back to Khador's turn. Take a look at the rest of the map. See the Protectorate in the distance. The first thing that happens is all the focus returns to the Warcaster, so Sorsha has 6 focus points again. She's going to go ahead and spend one of those points to maintain Fog of War. She's going to allocate 2 focus points to this Warjack here. Maximum allocation of points to a Warjack is 3. And she's going to grant 1 focus point to the other Warjack. Now that focus allocation has concluded, they're going to activate one model at a time, starting with the Destroyer, who's going to move his allotment while retaining the higher ground. By staying up on the hill, the Destroyer has what's called higher ground. If enemy models fire on the destroyer while he has higher ground, he has a +2 bonus to his defense. Since the destroyer did not run, he can go ahead and fire his bombard cannon. He's going to target the protectorate arc node. The bombard cannon has an effective range of 14 inches. Measuring from the base of the destroyer out, we see that it can hit the model. Now the bombard cannon is an area of effect 3, which means you use this template utilizing the inside circle, which is a 3-inch blast. If you have to use deviation, make sure you're putting this down on the opponent model where 1 goes beyond the model and 4 comes back to towards the model firing. If the destroyer hits the model, which means he takes his rat, which is a 4, and normally he would roll 2d6 in order to try to match or beat the Revenger's defense. Now, the Revenger is currently under Defender's Ward, so his effective defense is a 14. Starting with the rat, which is the range attack 4 against a 14, the destroyer is going to choose to use one of the focus points to boost his attack. What does boost mean? It means that instead of using the standard 2d6, you actually roll 3d6 and add it to the 4. And the result is 6, 11, 13 plus 4 is 17, beating out the defense of the Revenger. So because his hit dice beat the defense of the opponent, there is no scatter and it lands directly where it was originally placed. The destroyer still has 1 remaining focus point, and the rate of fire on the destroyer cannon is 1, so he can't decide to fire again, so he'll go ahead and use this focus point to boost the damage. So you start off with the power of the bombard cannon, which is a 14, and now he'll roll 3d6 because he boosted. He ended up with 10, so now the power of 14 plus 10 is 24. We compare this to the Revenger's armor, which is a 17, but he also has a shield, which gives him a +2 to 19, and he also has Defender's Ward, which then boosts it to a 21. So 24 minus 21, 3 points of damage, and we roll a different die, which is a 4, to determine where to allocate that damage. So using the Revenger's card, you start in the 4 column and mark down 3, because 24 minus 21 is 3. So those 3 boxes are now marked off, and that much damage has occurred to the Revenger. You'll notice that there's some letters down here. The Revenger's an arc node, so he has A's. If both A's are marked over, he can no longer be used as an arc node. If all the L's are marked off, he can no longer use his left-handed weapon. R for right-handed weapon, M for movement, and C for cortex. If the cortex is damaged, the Revenger cannot be allocated focus points by the Warcaster. At this point, the destroyer is done with his move. The Juggernaut will go ahead and use his focus to run. Sorsha, interested in maintaining control over both warjacks, measure her control radius, which could have been done prior to the destroyer moving, because you can measure your Warcaster's control at any point in the game. So we see that she's clearly in control of both. So the question really becomes, where should she be moving in order to kind of ensure that she retains that control, but she doesn't leave herself open and vulnerable to the Protectorate forces. Sorsha has decided that she's going to go ahead and take advantage of the higher ground and move up towards the destroyer. Her movement is a 6. She hasn't cast a spell. She's merely done upkeep during an earlier turn. So she's just going to choose to run, which will not cost her any focus points. She'll again measure out her control area. So she still clearly has control over everything. And now with 2 focus points, she has a +2 to her armor. Being up on the hill, she has a +2 to her defense. On top of which, because of her Juggernaut in front of her, there's a good chance that she won't even be able to be targeted. In Warmachine, each model is the full cylinder of its base. So if this larger model, based on the larger base size, if the opposing force can't get a bead on this model's base without crossing through the larger model in front of her, she can't be targeted. At this point, Khador is done, and we're going back to the Protectorate. You can kind of see that over time, once you understand all the rules, that this game can move by incredibly fast.